Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange, and today I thought it was about time I did an entire video dedicated to recommending slasher books. If you don't know, it's one of my favorite subgenres of horror, and I was trying to think about why that is, and I really couldn't come up with a good answer. I wish I had some profound thing to say about humanity and the themes and what it says about us as people, but if I'm honest, I just find slasher books and movies to be really fun, so I want to share some of my favorites with you and hopefully add some to your own TBR. All that being said, let's get started. If we're gonna talk slasher books, I have to start by talking about one of my favorite authors who does the genre oh so well. That, of course, is Cameron Robeek. The book series I want to talk about here is the Kill River series. I have Kill River 1, Kill River 2, and Kill River 3 here. Now, this is a really fun trilogy that follows a young teenage girl named Cindy. At the beginning of the first book, she is a bit of a loner and her parents send her off to summer camp. She's reluctant to go, but when she's there, she does make some friends, and along with these friends, she decides to sneak off in the night, and they discover an abandoned water park. They decide to take advantage of the situation and have some fun. However, they are unaware that there is someone, possibly a slasher, also in the water park, and slowly her friends begin to disappear. This is the classic slasher story, and I just have to recommend it for anyone like myself who loves nostalgic slasher movies. These books specifically are set in the 80s and they're filled with 80s nostalgia. There are tons of references to music because Cindy is a big music buff, but there's also references to like the clothes and the hairstyles and all of that good stuff, and it just makes for a really fun experience. I mentioned that this is multiple books, and what the author does so well is the first book really feels like a slasher movie and the next two books basically feel like the sequels to slasher movies. So if you are someone who loves the slasher genre, these are definite ones to check out. They are a bit gruesome, but not over the top. The author basically writes his books like you would watch a movie, and so you really get that same experience. They're really fun and fast-paced, and you will just fly through them. And yeah, I just can't stop gushing about these books on my channel, and it's for a good reason. If you like slashers, these are a must. Next, I want to recommend Camp Carnage by Joshua Winning and Elliot Arthur Cross. This is set in one of those controversial, terrible camps where religious families send their lesbian and gay children off to pray away their gay tendencies, and they believe that through prayer and turning to God, they can become heterosexual, which we all know is complete junk. However, the opposite kind of happens because when you put a bunch of gay people together and a bunch of lesbian people together, you can imagine that some romance is going to ensue. So there is some attraction between some of the boys and some of the girls in this camp. However, there is a reason I'm including it in this video because there is also a slasher on the loose. Now, when I first picked up this book, I was a little bit nervous about a slasher book all about slashing down gay boys and girls, but I found the representation to be very good. To the best of my knowledge, this is an own voices story. I believe that at least one of the authors who wrote this is gay himself, and I thought that it was a very balanced story with some really good character work, which is not something you always see in slashers because, let's be honest, we're usually here for the action, for the gore, but this book also brought in some really good character work in a short number of pages, so definitely one I recommend. Next, I want to recommend a novella, and that is Witching Hour Theater by Jonathan Janz, and this follows a young man who is going off to the theater to watch some horror movies. He is attracted to the girl that runs the concession stand, and he is enjoying his night out. However, he is not aware that some of the other people watching the film are slowly disappearing because there is possibly a dark, shadowy figure in the back of the theater that is slowly killing people off. This is just one of those really fun, classic slasher stories that is made so much better by the fact that it is set in a movie theater where they are watching slasher films, so it's very meta, and of course one that I would recommend to anyone who likes horror movies, which is probably most of us. It's just a really enjoyable, fun ride, so definitely recommend that one as well. Moving along, I also want to recommend The Summer Is Ended and We Are Not Yet Saved by Joey Camo. This is set in a camp where a boy is sent to spend the summer because his mother is a makeup artist who has gotten a job to work on a horror movie set, but she needs a space to send her son because he is too young to be alone. And so the story is told from the son's perspective as he is in this camp, and it's also told from the perspective of letters that he is sending back and forth with his mother. As you would expect, there is possibly a slasher on the loose. This is another camp with religious undertones, and so you get to see what's happening pretty soon. I'll say that the killer is pretty predictable in this one. You will figure it out right away. But what made this book so special was the relationship between the mother and the son. I actually think that their relationship reminded me a lot of the relationship that you see in Gilmore Girls between Lorelai and Rory. And you just have a lot of humor between the two of them. And certainly once again, you have that horror movie background because the mother in her letters is constantly talking about the work that she's doing on the sets, describing how she is creating fake eyeballs and fake blood. And so if you are someone that is a bit of a horror movie junkie and really likes those behind the scenes aspects, I think that that really added to the story. And again, the relationship between the mother and son is just so organic. It's the kind of relationship I hope to have with my son one day. And so it's a really beautiful story, but at the same time, it's a slasher. I do want to mention that the children in this book are on the younger side. I believe they're about 8 to 10, which is a little bit unusual. Most slasher stories are about teenagers or even adults. And so that might make some people a little bit uncomfortable, but if you can look past that, this is probably one of the smartest written slashers I've ever read, and definitely among my favorites because the author just wrote the story in such an intelligent way and is very much aware of the tropes of the slasher genre and really went to some unique places. So I had a lot of fun reading this. I definitely think it's one that every horror reader with a passion for slashers needs to read. Next, I want to recommend a graphic novel, and that is Hack and Slash by Tim Seeley. And this is pretty fun because it's told from the perspective of a final girl who survived a slasher attack and has now turned herself into a bit of a slasher hunter. So herself, along with her sidekick, who is this kind of creepy monster, go around looking for slashers and basically bringing them down. So I really like that it turns the final girl narrative on its head and she becomes the one seeking out the killers. And it's very meta. Again, this is a really good one for those of you that have read a lot of slasher stories and are looking for something different. It's very self-aware. As you can probably tell from the cover art though, it's very adult and at times very fan servicey. So expect a lot of sexual content, not going to be for everyone. She's very scantily clad dressed. But again, if you can look past that, I think this one is really smart, really fun, and I definitely recommend this series. I also want to recommend Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar. This is a story that follows a teenage girl named Quinn who moves into a new town with her father in order to get a fresh start. You find out that this town has a tough history. The main factory where everyone worked has shut down, and so they're in a bit of an economic downturn. And this has caused a lot of tension between the older and younger generation because there's a lot of blame going on. This town has a clown mascot, and that is where the slasher aspect comes in because someone is possibly dressing up like this clown and taking people down in the night. So if you've ever wanted to read a horror book that involves a slasher clown, this is the one to read. It is just as fantastic as it sounds. It has some really gruesome, scary scenes in it. If you are afraid of clowns, you will find this book absolutely terrifying. And at the same time, I think there's some really good character work in this book. There are some fantastic representations of teenage characters. This is technically young adult, but I always forget it because I think that this book has so much all ages appeal, and I would definitely recommend it regardless of your age or reading taste. This one is incredibly fun, again, with some good creepy clown slasher action. Finally, I want to recommend a horror novella called Triple Axe by Scott Cole, which involves a group of strippers that find themselves in the center of a slasher attack. because their co-workers are slowly getting killed off by some mysterious entity. They try to go to the police, they try to go to authorities. However, because of their chosen career, they just aren't taken very seriously, and so they had to take matters into their own hands. I love the story because I found it to be very female empowering, and at the same time, it definitely has a lot of fun aspects to it. I will say that it definitely doesn't shy away from the adult aspects of stripping. There is definitely a lot of adult content in these books, but keep in mind that they're not meant to be erotic. The author is not intending to arouse the reader. It's not a romance or an erotica book, but definitely there is a lot of talk about adult toys and things like that. This book is just a lot of fun, and I really thought it had some strong female characters at the center of the story, and at the same time a lot of good action. I just thought this one was fun, and so again, a slasher book that you don't want to miss. It's definitely worth reading, and I would love to see more people checking it out. So that is it for this video. Down below, let me know which of the books you are planning on picking up from my recommendations. I would also love you to tell me which is your favorite slasher movie. I have a lot of favorites. I really enjoy Halloween and The Nightmare on Elm Street, but if I had to pick a favorite, I think I would go with the first Scream movie. I really love that one because it's very meta and funny. And I would love to hear your pick down below. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. I do read and recommend a lot of horror as well as thrillers, science fiction, and fantasy. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.